Hi, welcome to Arkintel. The world owes more money than it can ever repay, and the clock is ticking. Global debt has now climbed to over $324 trillion. That's a number so massive, it almost feels meaningless, until you break it down. For every single dollar of goods and services humanity produces, there are more than $3 of debt attached to it. The global economy isn't just carrying debt, it's drowning in it. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about the total, it's about the cost of keeping that mountain alive. In 2024, developing countries alone spent nearly $1 trillion just on interest payments. Money that could have built schools, hospitals, and infrastructure, but instead vanished into servicing old obligations. Debt is no longer fueling growth. It has become a bill the world can't afford to pay. And the question is no longer whether this system is sustainable, it's how long before it breaks. Debt has always been part of economic life. After World War II, governments borrowed massively to rebuild. In the 1980s, deregulation and financial innovation made credit more accessible than ever. By the 2000s, borrowing had become the lifeblood of global growth. Then came the financial crisis of 2008. To stop the banking system from collapsing, central banks cut interest rates close to zero. Cheap money flooded the world. Governments, corporations, and households were encouraged, almost forced, to borrow more. And more they did. When COVID-19 struck, debt addiction went into override. Governments launched unprecedented stimulus packages to prevent mass unemployment and social collapse. In a single year, global debt jumped by nearly 30 percentage points relative to world's GDP, the sharpest surge in modern history. Unlike past debt booms, this one wasn't confined to wealthy nations. Emerging markets joined in, borrowing heavily just to survive. What began as a tool to stabilize economies turned into a habit. Now, the habit has become a trap. For years, debt felt cheap. Interest rates hovered near zero, making the burden manageable. But that era is gone. Take the United States. Net interest costs are rising so fast that by 2026, America will spend over $1 trillion a year just paying interest on its federal debt. That's more than it spends on its entire military today. Italy, carrying public debt above 3 trillion euros, spends close to 90 billion euros every year just to service it. That's more than it budgets for schools or defense. And remember, Italy isn't a small player. It's the third largest economy in the Eurozone. Japan, with the highest debt to GDP ratio in the developed world, has been shielded by ultra-low rates for decades. But if borrowing costs rise even slightly, Tokyo's fiscal position could spiral out of control. It doesn't stop with governments. Corporations that issued bonds at 2% 5 years ago now face refinancing at 6% or 7%. Households across Europe and the US are staring down higher mortgage rates, ballooning credit card balances, and student loans that feel impossible to pay back. Here's the brutal truth. The global economy is now borrowing new money simply to cover the interest on old money. This isn't growth, it's survival. And survival on borrowed time is fragile. If the system is unsustainable, how do we escape? There are three main ways, none of them painless. The first is restructuring. Countries or corporations renegotiate their debts, extending maturities, reducing principal, or writing parts off. We've seen it before. Argentina's defaults, Greece's crisis, Lebanon's collapse. But imagine dozens of countries doing this at once. The financial system could seize up. Banks could fail, and markets could panic. The second is inflation. By allowing prices to rise faster than interest rates, governments shrink the real value of debt. It's a politically tempting option. Voters feel the pain slowly rather than through sudden tax hikes or spending cuts. But inflation punishes savers, erodes wages, and destabilizes entire societies if it runs out of control. The third is default, the most brutal option, simply refusing to pay. Defaults are rare in major economies, but if a giant like Italy ever defaulted, or if the United States even delayed payments, the global financial system could implode. There is a fourth, more optimistic path: growth. If the world suddenly experienced rapid productivity gains, debts could shrink relative to GDP. But with aging populations, slowing innovation, and rising geopolitical tensions, even with the promise of AI, betting on growth alone feels like wishful thinking. You might think global debt is an abstract problem, something only economists and policymakers worry about. But it's not. It shapes your daily life. When governments spend billions on interest, they cut elsewhere. That means higher taxes, fewer services, and slower investment in infrastructure. When corporations are crushed by debt service, they cut jobs, scale back research, and reduce wages. When households are squeezed, consumer demand collapses. And when the financial system itself is at risk, your savings, your retirement account, and even the value of your currency are on the line. Global debt isn't just a number, it's the foundation of the system you live in. And right now, that foundation is cracking. Solutions exist, but none are easy. Governments can implement targeted restructurings, renegotiating debts before crises explode. They can pursue balanced inflation, allowing modern price growth to chip away at debt while preventing runaway costs of living. They can shift budgets from wasteful consumption to long-term productivity, investing in infrastructure, green energy, and digital systems that boost growth. Above all, they can push for transparency. Hidden debts like those in shadow banking or opaque bilateral loans are financial landmines waiting to detonate. The problem is not that solutions don't exist. The problem is that they all involve pain, and politicians rarely choose pain until crisis forces their hand. Here's the reality. The world has built an economy on promises it cannot keep. A $324 trillion mountain of obligations, rising interest costs, and limited ways out. The choices are ugly. Restructuring means chaos, inflation means erosion, and default means collapse. The only question is which path we stumble onto and whether leaders will act before the system forces them to. Can the world survive the debt bomb? Yes, but only if we confront the ticking clock now, before it explodes. Because once the fuse burns out, there won't be time left to choose. If you found this video insightful, make sure to check out Is Italy the Next Debt Time Bomb of Europe? In this video, we break down Italy's $3 trillion debt crisis, why rising interest costs, Eurozone constraints, and banking risks are pushing Europe's third largest economy toward a breaking point, with consequences that could shake the entire Eurozone. Click the video to watch now.